Welcome. You are listening to and watching, perhaps, the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. Today is July 6th, 2020. Well, if you were watching the markets, you noticed that over 4th of July weekend, gold traded at 1776. Is that a sign from the gold gods above, or is it just pure coincidence? I'm not sure. What do you think? Email us, kl@kerrylutz.com, kl@kerrylutz.com with your opinion. Now, we're thinking of having a contest. But I'm afraid that the time window for it isn't going to be open for very long. Well, my next guest suggested that we have a contest to pick the exact time and date which Ghislaine Maxwell will be suicided or commit suicide. She is in the same federal facility where her partner in crime also was suicided. I'm talking about Jeffrey Epstein. So maybe they've picked things up a notch or two in that facility. I know it well because it was in downtown Manhattan, literally around the corner from the federal courthouse at Foley Square. And fortunately, never had any contact with anybody in there, never visited the place. But I'd walk past it, see the lines of guests going in, the lines of visitors approaching. It's a popular area. It's right there by the U.S. Attorney's Office. In fact, the U.S. Attorney's Office has a bridge going into that facility, and then it's connected to the courthouses, either underground or above. There's bridges that go there as well. So it's all very convenient. And I guess it's as good a place as any to get offed, but it happens rarely. But anyway, John, so what do you think? How long do you think Ghislaine is going to last?
Hey, Kerry. Well, you know that there are people trying to figure out, how can we kill her? and there are other people, apparently, who probably don't want that to happen. It seems like there are factions in this case where there are some people who are actually trying to get to some measure of justice in all this. And then there are other people who know that it's really bad if those tapes come out, because, they found a bunch of tapes when they were investigating Jeffrey Epstein to begin with. And, it had rich, famous people's names on the tapes with dates, which were obviously the closed circuit camera recordings of the stuff that went on at his, Pedo Island and the Lolita Express plane and everything. So those things are out there. Unless they've been burned already, they exist. And that's what everybody wants to avoid, or that's what half the rich world apparently wants to avoid having come out. And yes. And so if it depends on who has her, right? If one faction has her, maybe she survives for a little while. If the other faction has her, she's dead in a week. We just can't know,
But if I was in her position, I'd have a dead man switch, right? Mm-hmm. And I'd say, anything happens to me, it's going to be blown out on hundreds of servers around the world, every single video that I've got. And you got to figure she's got copies of all of those videos. She literally knows where the bodies are buried on Pedo Island. And she should have an insurance policy here. If she doesn't, she knows what she's dealing with. The rumors are rife that she's a Mossad agent, that her father was a Mossad agent, Robert Maxwell, who bilked a bunch of newspaper pension funds in England, and then supposedly he committed suicide. So it's in her family genetic makeup to kill themselves under adverse challenges. But I just have the feeling she's one step ahead of everybody. John, just got that feeling.
Well, you would have thought that Jeffrey Epstein would have had that kind of kill switch too, right? Just as a normal precaution when you're doing that kind of stuff, that you would have it set up so things would go public if anything happens to you. And maybe Ghislaine Ghislaine Maxwell has something like that, and would that be an amazing day or what when all that stuff got released all at once? Because that would be something that would be in the history books for hundreds of years. Because apparently there's a lot of big names to be named here, a lot, yeah, and. Alan Dershowitz is such a funny part of this story because he's suing one of the accusers for libel, or is it slander? One of those two. And he's out there saying defamation. Okay, both. The third. Yeah, all right. So he's out there saying, yeah, good, let those tapes be released because I know I'm not on any of the tapes. So.
And then the judge told them both to destroy.
That's right.
The tape, the evidence, which, I'm going to destroy that. Yeah, that could be my life insurance policy, and I'm going to destroy it. You out of your mind? Yeah. Oh, my God.
I just watched a documentary or a show on Australian 60 Minutes about this case. And they went into the pedophile stuff and the island and the plane and everything and all the accusers. They never once mentioned the intelligence connection, which is by far the most interesting part of this. I mean, if he was a Mossad agent or working for the CIA or those two in concert in order to blackmail rich and powerful people into doing what those governments want them to do. That's the story. It's not some rich pedophile. That's, how many of them are out there? Rich perverts are probably a dime a dozen in today's world. But if it was an intelligence honeypot operation run at high levels of U.S. and Israeli government, then you got a real story. And that's I don't know whether I hope that's true or not, but I think it would be an amazing thing to come out if it does. And see, that's why that's why she's still in danger, even though the whole world is watching her, just like they were watching Jeffrey Epstein, because letting that come out would be seen as a worse outcome than almost anything else. And blatantly murdering her would still be something they could get past a lot more easily than if the truth of this comes out, if that's the truth. It would be like the Saudi Arabian thing. They murdered a Washington Post journalist and totally got away with it. Nothing serious happened to the guy in charge who ordered it. And so I think our guys probably see that and think they can get away with the same thing if they have to. So that's really the interesting twist that might come up here pretty soon is where...
you think they'll be a little bit more careful? I mean, why would they put her in there? She should be in a military base, like protected with the nuclear missiles, right? Well, she shouldn't be in a lockup. You would
think, but I mean, they got away with it with Jeffrey Epstein. So maybe they figure, well, we did it once here. We can do it again if we have to. So who knows? Yeah, this is one of those stories where there's so much obvious stuff going on.
Yes.
And there's basically nobody pointing it out, really. I mean, okay, they arrested her. So the people who arrested her are trying to get to the bottom of something, but whether they go all the way, that's the question, whether it stops at, okay, we caught these pedophiles and she's going to do time now for molesting young girls and stuff like that, which, I mean, she obviously does deserve to do time just for that.
Oh, yeah.
But the other stuff is what's really unique and would kind of define a political era if it happens. So there's a potential huge story out there.
I can't even imagine, John, should this get out, all the people on that list, all the Hollywood celebrities, the politicians, the journalists, and they're still out there among us. They haven't been called to account for any of it. Yeah, Prince Andrew has gotten a lot of flack, and he's been supposedly banished from the royal family. But really, there's the Clintons. They've been knee deep in it. Hillary was on the Lolita Express. Bill was there. They got pictures of Bill. It was a big honeypot, and it sounded like Epstein made his fortune from blackmailing. And when you look at it this way, that if it was really a Mossad CIA-sponsored honeypot, then Maxwell could have actually been the control of Epstein. He might not have really been running the show. He just got the money and the gratification that he was looking for. They got the goods on all these politicians. Ehud Barak, Israeli politician, Labor Party leader, he's there. They got him going into the mansion. I got to believe that whoever had all those, they were working for, they got all those videos. They're all there. The copies are locked away someplace. Maybe it's not going to do any good to kill her, and maybe it will. At this point, I don't have the answer, but pretty freaky stuff for sure. So gold continues to go up. We're really close to $1,800, John. It hit $1,800 on the futures, and it's pretty interesting what's happening here.
Yeah, it's so nice to be back in a gold bull market. That was a really long, boring stretch. For it's like 5 years, a 5-year-long bear market.
Well, 13, it was obvious the run was over. From 11, kind of jerked around, sawtooth. Trend was down, but once we hit 13, it was pretty much obvious.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Financial Survival Network is brought to you today by Orin Resources, a junior exploration company with the appetite of a major. It's hot on the trail of the next globally significant discovery, creating enormous potential upside for you, the shareholder. Orin is one of the most aggressive exploration companies pursuing high-grade, scalable gold and copper deposits, and has a premier 7-project portfolio, including its 2 flagships, Committee Bay in the Arctic and Sombrero in Peru. Orin's unparalleled technical team and highly experienced management has a history of success in advancing and monetizing exploration assets. No wonder Orin's been called one of the best in the junior exploration sector. Orin trades on the TSX and the NYSE under AUG. To learn more, go to orinresources.com. That's AURYNresources.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Which makes it a 6-year bear market. So you don't want to have to live through something like that when something you're into does the wrong thing for 6 straight years. That's a long time in the life of an investor. But it's nice to see it coming back. And
still getting the trolls, John. Saying, well, you said buy silver. I said to have a portion of your assets in here because at some point they're going to screw up and you're going to be happy you did. Those are my words.
Well, when something eventually works out, people tend to forget how long it took. So there's still a chance that this is going to feel like a good idea, gold and silver, even though it took us a long time to get here, because there's really no obvious upside limit given the world the way it is to gold and silver, because where else are you going to hide at some point? It won't be treasury bonds, it won't be real estate.
Yeah.
There might not be any place else to hide, and there's just an awful lot of capital out there. And, did we talk about this last week about the Robinhood investors who are? Oh well, possibly,
I've talked about them before, but they're an interesting lot. The Robinhood investors.
Well, they're basically day traders, a lot of them, because trading on Robinhood is free. So you can go in and out all you want to, and try to make money from small incremental changes. And you also trend follow when that happens. Momentum investors are basically the bulk of day traders, because it's
Sure.
way easier to join a trend, ride it a little ways, and then get off than it is to oppose a trend, because you have to you have to call the turning point perfectly. And where there is momentum now is in the gold mining stocks, especially the junior gold miners. So and I don't remember where I saw this, but somebody, it was in MarketWatch. It was a MarketWatch article speculating or quoting somebody as speculating that the junior miners will be the next big thing for Robinhood day traders, because they've got positive momentum and they're incredibly volatile. So, and that's happening now. The list of junior miners I watch are moving in double-digit percentage increments on a normal day now. You're seeing 10 or 15% increases in these things. and the generalist money that's out there hasn't really started to pour in yet. And when it does, then all bets are off in what the upside limit for these stocks are, because they're thinly traded, very small cap stocks. And if people, if they come to the attention of people who are momentum traders and who have a lot of capital in the aggregate to throw at stuff like this, so they'll really rock. So that's out there as a possibility. And I think
widely shorted too, these mining stocks, because for the past 9 years to short this sector was a no-brainer, naked shorting. And if in fact the Robinhood set gets into these, they will blow out the shorts in short order, and then you could really see a major movement, as we know that this sector, especially because they're Canadian companies, have been rife with abusive short sellers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let gold pass, say, 2,000, some really big number that catches everybody's attention and makes headlines and stuff like that. And then there's a decent chance that the day traders fixate on the gold miners, and then there will be action. So far gold's holding up pretty well considering where we are in the seasonal cycle, because this is normally the weakest time for gold and silver. But so much money is flowing into the big ETFs, which then have to, like GLD, the gold ETF, which buys gold bullion in order to back its shares.
In theory.
Well, I mean, they do buy it, but they store it in ways.
Yeah, who the heck knows?
Where they have subcontractors and everything that they're not allowed to audit. So there's no real way to know what's in GLD, which means it's not gold. But it's something a lot of people use as a trading vehicle in gold. And it's going up along with gold right now, which means at least some part of that fund is buying more gold bars. And so that's helping to support gold's price at a time when seasonality is pretty weak. And that's a good sign. When physical demand blows through the technical stuff and the seasonality and keeps the price going up, that sets the stage for a spectacular January and February of next year when seasonality gets strong. And, the ETFs are probably still having to buy because people are still pouring into the sector. So, it could be a good stretch here. It could be a really, fun early 2021. Yeah. And then you've got the mining stuff that we just talked about. So yeah, it could be a lot of fun in precious metals going forward. And silver, which you mentioned, is still really beaten down. And normally it outperforms gold in the steep part of a bull market. And this time around, it could outperform even more than usual because it's so low relative to gold. So you got the gold silver ratio extremely favorable for silver, and then generalist money flowing into these thinly traded, very small markets. So, it's completely possible that the next couple of years are among the best ever for precious metals. And you just want to, be positioned to a certain extent. Don't jump in with both feet, because you never know. What I just said might not be true, but it has that feel. So you definitely want to have some exposure to this going forward.
Hey, and if not, then buy Chinese stocks, right? Because they're doing great now.
Well, China is treating its stock market the way we treat ours now, as a public policy lever, rather than as a free market that signals to capitalists how to allocate their capital. They want stocks to go up because it helps them politically. Yes. And the Chinese state-owned press is basically just telling people to buy stocks, and it's working. People are piling in over there, and Chinese stocks are spiking. But there's not a lot of fundamental reasons for stocks to go up, other than the expectation that central banks are going to force them higher by buying them, or by buying everything else in the financial markets. So, who do you believe? The fundamentals, which say short everything in sight in the stock market, or the expectation of central banks doing things they've really never done before on this scale? And I got to say, it's highly likely that central banks are going to do this stuff. They're going to buy equities, and they're already buying junk bonds in the U.S. They're already buying equities in Japan and Switzerland, and they might be secretly buying equities in the U.S. We've got the plunge protection team that doesn't really have a balance sheet that they report. So who knows what they're doing? So, so this stuff is all out there in the future. And if the economy doesn't bounce back strongly here pretty soon, which it might not, the whole COVID thing is not over yet. And some of the states that opened early are having to slow down or stop their openings, which means that the economy won't grow as quickly as it would have if they'd gotten to open completely. And so we may see economic numbers that aren't as good as people are expecting, and that might affect the stock market and force the government to come in. You have all that out there. So it's one of those times when there isn't a right answer to what to do, because you've got things happening and people doing things that they've never done before.
Correct.
And there's no way to predict what they're going to do because it's uncharted territory. Is the Fed going to overtly buy the S&P 500 with $1 trillion of newly created currency next year? Maybe. Who knows? It's just completely possible now.
Well, one thing when we talk about the buying junk bonds, well, traditionally junk bonds have, for poorly rated companies, junk bonds have been the equivalent of buying stock in those companies because those companies, if they go bankrupt, creditors are going to own them anyway. So you're effectively buying stock in those companies.
Well, yeah, I was a junk bond analyst way back in the day. And when that market imploded, that's what we did. We sat around a conference table and divided up the assets of the busted companies, where the guys who used to own the bonds got equity, which they really didn't want. If you're running a bond fund, you want income. You want something that yields 12% a year. You don't want the equity in some crappy little railroad or clothing company or something like that. But that's what the bond funds end up with. They end up with the equity because that's all there is. There's the bonds basically become worthless once they default. So you have to convert them into equity to get a deal done. And that'll happen this time around too, with these junk bonds, except it'll be the government's owning.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous.
Treasury secretary sitting at the table with Goldman Sachs trying to divide up, the assets of some little company.
Trying to figure out what it's worth. Yeah, it's absurd. It's totally absurd. And I guess we will leave it at that. It's definitely getting interesting out there. We're going to see a lot more of this craziness. No doubt. And you just need to be ready for it. Email us, kl@kerrylutz.com. Take a look at John's site, which is dollarcollapse.com. Sign up for his free newsletter. Sign up for ours at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. And John, we will pick up next Monday.
All right, Kerry. See ya.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.